Hello,
And welcome
to Make It Weird,
the podcast
where
where we make it weird.
every Wednesday.
Weird Wednesday energy.
I said it slowly because I forgot what it was already.
Perfect. I'm glad that that's never going to stick.
Welcome to the WWE podcast.
It's high action all the time.
It's so weird you won't even believe it.
Yeah, you're not even gonna believe that the president of WWE had a fucking timeline in which he got his daughter pregnant. That's a real thing. He had like this whole story. He had this whole story concocted where his daughter was going to like get impregnated by a cult leader, and then at the very end it would be revealed that he was the cult leader.
What the fuck?
They don't care. It was the early 2000s.
No, you're not wrong. Yeah, so WWE, that's what this podcast is. It's not what you think. It is Weird Wednesday energy.
But if you thought it was Weird Wednesday energy, then it is what you think.
Exactly.
So it just kind of
you're in the right place.
Yeah.
Good job, you did it.
Congratulations.
Thanks for making it in.
We appreciate you.
Indeed.
Sit down, have a seat. It's time to be interviewed.
And we're Chris Hansen, collectively.
The cockroach.
Obviously.
I don't know, I just thought about this. We were talking about the Australian Navy has been thinking about getting submarines, and they were
don't
like
already have submarines?
like nuclear submarines, like what we have.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah, it was like this whole thing, and apparently one of the people at work looked into applying, and the interview question was like 3 things. It was like, why do you think you need to go to Australia? Why do you think you need to leave the country that you're in? And do you understand that this is a military position that you're applying to?
That's it?
That was like that. Yeah, that was it.
Okay. Easy peasy.
Yeah. I don't know why I thought about that. I think it was just sit down
Hopping right into the Australian Navy.
Speaking of the Navy,
yeah?
What's your story about?
It does require another trip on the Harmony Time Machine.
Mine requires a trip on the Haley Time Machine.
Oh my god!
Wow, how far back are you going?
Mine, I'm going to the 1800s.
Oh, I'm going to 1942.
Okay, mine is like, weird.
Great. Mine's going to sound really familiar to you.
Oh boy.
So who's going to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay, you're going to go first? Tell me.
I'll go. Because I think you went first last time anyways.
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Humor me for a moment. Let's say...
Oh, we're not strapping in?
Oh, wait. Okay, sorry. You're right. Oh, yeah. We got to travel back first. You are correct. All right. Get in your Harmony Time Machine.
I got to prepare.
Yeah. Breathe in, breathe out. Get ready to brace. And then she exploded.
What
she
if I
didn't
had
make
an
it
aneurysm?
this time. Oh my god, don't. Please don't.
I got really lightheaded from that, actually.
You were trying too hard. Did you poop a little bit?
I'm not answering that question.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna have to clean my chair later, aren't I?
No. Listen, I'm wearing my still suit, so all of my body's moisture is being recirculated.
Perfect. Are you also wearing your pit diaper? Sorry.
Under the spill suit?
Yeah.
No, over the spill
For
suit.
extra
yes.
protection.
Well, it's not for protection. It's actually just to look sick as fuck.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That Harley Davidson looking chastity belt looks great.
Don't let the hackers get into your chastity belt.
All right, so humor me for a minute.
I guess.
Let's say you believe in God.
Okay.
Like the Christian one who drowns his children.
Great.
And let's say you want to communicate with that God.
Sure.
How are you gonna do it?
A machine.
Get out of here. That's not supposed to be the answer.
I love this story.
You know what you're... okay. All right.
I'm sorry.
No,
Turn it back over. Turn it back over. I'll answer differently.
No, I like that you already knew it. Oh, man. So, yes. So if praying's not enough for you to talk to God, you need to hear him speak. You need to hear those fucking words. You've got to build a machine.
Hell yeah. And it runs off of souls.
So we're going to talk about the God machine.
Tell me about it. I've never heard about this before, and I want to know so much.
Liar. I had actually not heard of it before.
Yeah?
No, I hadn't at all.
I'm glad that you had never heard of it, because it's a really cool thing to discover.
It's very fun. I've had a lot of fun with it. All right, so I'm going to tell you the story of John Murray Spear, who was a key figure in the 19th century spiritualist movement, and his unconventional attempt to fuse spirituality with technological innovation, aka the creator of the God machine.
So excited for this.
All right, so the cool thing about John Spear is that while he is pretty eccentric, did some questionable things later in his life. In the beginning of his life, he was actually a pretty cool dude, and he stood for a lot of good causes, like anti-slavery, women's rights, like, he called it like free love or whatever. Like, yeah, like for the early 1800s, this dude was like pretty liberal. He was pretty cool. All right, so John Murray Spear was born on September 16th, 1804, a year after his brother Charles in Boston, Massachusetts. Spear was named after Pastor John Murray of the First Universalist Church, which his brothers were raised in, eventually becoming pastors themselves. So the defining theology of Universalism we'll talk about a little bit is universal salvation. So Universalists believe that the God of love would not create a person knowing that that person would be destined for eternal damnation.
I like that.
I do too. Like, I hate the idea of someone creating something just knowing that it's going to fail and rot in hell.
Yeah.
Like, it's a pretty awful theology. Like, so they concluded that all people must be destined for salvation in some way or another, which, yeah, I think is very, very cool. So at the time, Universalists were fairly progressive, especially compared to other denominations of Christianity. John took up all of those progressive reforms of the time, such as abolitionism, and would later include women's rights, prison reform, the abolition of the death penalty, a temperance movement, etc.
I fuck with this guy.
Yeah.
Like, hard.
Exactly. He's really cool. Minus maybe the temperance, because that's what led to, what's it called? When they took
Prohibition.
Thank you. They took all the alcohol away.
You're welcome.
Prohibition, yeah. So even in Universalism, John pushed the boundaries of what many found acceptable, forcing him to take over smaller and smaller congregations, causing his wife, Betsy, and children to sacrifice for his causes. He probably wasn't the best father. Who was in the 1800s? Who is now?
Not me.
Not me. All right, so John was initially a Unitarian minister, but his life took a dramatic turn in the 1840s when he became involved in spiritualism. So spiritualism, which rose to prominence in the 19th century, was based on the belief that the living could communicate with spirits of the deceased, usually through mediums. So during this period, the practice was seen as a way to connect with a higher reality, seek guidance from the spiritual realm, which I'm also like, I fuck with this. Sounds like a good time. Get that Ouija board out.
On it.
On Christmas Eve, 1844, John attended a lecture against Roman Catholicism in Portland, Mass.
Interesting.
John remained silent throughout. At the end of the lecture, a man stood up to ask if, quote, a reply would be permitted. The crowd roared at him to be quiet, which caused John to stand up and ask, quote, if they were afraid of free discussion. Because of this, as John left, a mob grabbed him. They forced him to the ground, beating his head repeatedly.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. This apparently sent John into a coma, which lasted about a week. And when John woke up, he reported having strange visions and premonitions of the future while unconscious. And thus begins his journey into spiritualism. As John started to see strict religion as a burden on free thought and science, he decided to leave the Church of Universalism to devote his studies to the spiritualist movement. So by this time, John had begun the experiment with, quote, mesmeric trance.
Okay.
He's said to have several messages written in his hand, but according to John, the words are not from himself. So he's holding the pen. Someone else is giving him the words, directing him to travel the world on missions from the spirits to heal people in need. So in 1847, John became friends with a man who would create a huge impact on his life and spiritualistic values. That year, Spear wrote a review of the Principles of Nature, Her Divine Revelations, and A Voice of Mankind. So he wrote a review of these, calling it, quote, the most wonderful work ever made by a mortal man.
Wow.
In fact, the mortal man who had written the book, Andrew Jackson Davis, also known as the Poughkeepsie Seer, I'd never heard of this guy before, said he had not written it at all. Instead, he claimed the text was composed of communications with deceased scientist and mystic Emanuel Swedenborg and the ancient Greek physician Galen.
Interesting.
Very, very interesting.
Okay. I love just these random people claiming that they've talked to, like, all these different historic figures.
It's like... This sounds awful. You think you're that important?
For real.
Like somebody like Galileo's like, let me talk through you so you can write this article.
Yeah, Albert Einstein actually whispered this into my ear last night.
No, I think if someone deceased was going to talk to me, it would be some rando off the streets. And they'd just be like, how's it going? Let me tell you about this weird shit I did.
Yeah, I was going to say, I would definitely, like, as a ghost, confess some heinous shit.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't really done anything bad, but I would probably make things up.
I would just want to be someone in someone's ear, kind of just like, you sure you want to do that?
Hey, you should buy that thing.
Do you like that? Do you like her?
Are you sure? What if you put her entire foot in your mouth and you bit hard?
Have you considered cracking an egg on that person's head? This is Satan.
Did you ever like do that thing as a kid where they would like
Yes, crack the
crack
alleged
the
egg
egg.
on your
Yeah.
head and made it feel like the water. Or
Ugh.
the other thing where like someone puts their fingers on your wrist and you have to tell them when you think they're all the way to the crook of your arm. I did that with Bobby the other day and he got it completely right. I was annoyed.
Wait, hold up. How would you not know where they're
Your eyes are closed. Sorry.
Okay,
That's an important detail to leave out. All right. Well, it's hard to do from this angle. Okay.
How would you not know that they're in the crook of your wrist though?
You're supposed to do it like really gently.
Because you're there now.
Yeah, so you did it perfectly. I don't know. When I was a kid, we used to do it, and it would always feel like you were there, like right here.
That's weird.
Yeah, I don't know. Kids are weird.
They are
Child
weird.
lore.
Child lore. Did you know that our bodies are only good at telling where pain is happening within about 3 inches of the spot?
Interesting.
Yeah, if your eyes are closed and you like experience pain, like something bites you or stings you, yeah.
Huh. So when someone cuts you, it just hurts like the whole thing around it?
Kind of, yeah. Like if you're looking at it, you can tell like I hurt here because I have a boo-boo here.
Yeah.
But if your eyes are closed, like you'll
Have a
know
hard
it's
time
somewhere.
placing it. Yeah. That's really interesting. All right, so the friend that I was talking about, Andrew Jackson Davis, he was among the first proponents of the spiritualist movement. So in 1848, when the Fox sisters began communicating with ghosts through coded knocking or, quote, table rapping, the movement spread quickly. Soon, all across America, spiritual seekers were experimenting with seances, mediumship, and precursors to the Ouija board,
Good
also
shit.
known as the Ouija board.
It is spelled like super weird.
Yeah, it is interesting. I assume it comes from a language that is not English.
It's literally just a combination of the French word for yes and the German word for yes.
Oh, interesting.
Oui and ja.
Huh, okay. Ouija board. Is it supposed to be Ouija?
Just Ouija.
Oh, okay. By 1852, John claimed to be mostly taking directions from spirits to guide his life.
Vibes.
Honestly, that would take the stress out of a lot of my decision making.
It's like half the women on TikTok.
From their commands, he would travel city to city to perform their mission. He wrote, quote, "Thus far, I have learned that when I have been moved to go to a place, that is usually the best place to go to."
Okay.
Sorry.
What is that? Okay.
I am more and more persuaded that if we will hearken to the teachings of the Spirit, it will lead us into all truth and into the way of duty. Duty.
Show your butt the way of duty. The call of duty.
Get out.
The part.
By the end of 1852, we play a game at work every day. There's a website called Guess the Game. They also do Guess the Book, Guess the Movie, and they show you a series of 6 different screenshots, and each one you get to guess what it is. And depending on that, you get a certain amount of reds or yellows. And I almost never get them, but there was one that was Call of Duty. I have never played Call of Duty. I know exactly what it is, but I've never played it. But I got it on the first one. I felt so good about myself. Yeah, pretty exciting.
Shit, dude.
Yeah.
One time I played a GeoGuessr game, but it was World of Warcraft, and I literally got it like exactly on, and I was like, I was impressed, but I was also kind of disappointed. I was like, man.
Disappointed because of how well you know World of Warcraft?
Yeah, and I haven't touched the game in like 5 years.
Yeah.
No, I knew exactly where it was.
It's kind of impressive.
Thanks.
Like, I don't know. It's pretty cool. Bobby loves those GeoGuessr games. I don't like them. It's too much for me.
I couldn't do it in real life. World of Warcraft, though, which basically is real life, but like,
you're not wrong.
That one I can do. Real life, I cannot.
Yeah. All right, so by the end of 1852, Speer's roster of, quote, correspondents had expanded along with their ambitions. Speer claimed he was the mortal mouthpiece of, quote, Association of Beneficents, a committee of deceased luminaries that included John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, and Thomas Jefferson, all of whom had decided they could not stand aside as America failed to live up its revolutionary promise.
Oh, where are they now?
What does Benjamin Franklin look like now?
Google, show me this man's balls.
Yeah, so John Speer thinks he's a pretty important person and that these other very important people in history are speaking to him. He thinks he's hot shit.
Calm down.
Yeah, he does seem like a nice person. In November of 1853, John received a message from the spirit of Benjamin Franklin. They would begin transmitting plans for a new motor, a machine that would have perpetual motion.
Okay.
This new motor, or new motive power, was a generator of sorts.
Great.
At its simplest, Spear described it as a perpetual motion device that, quote, will have the power to impart its electric forces to any number of machines. At its most complex, however, it was a god machine, the culmination of what Spear, speaking for the association, it's association of dead people that speak to him,
Yeah.
called, quote, a grand practical movement for the redemption of the human race. So this machine is going to save us all.
That's exactly what I've been saying.
Like, thank God, honestly.
we need the robot overlords to tell us how to live.
Seriously, it'd make everything better. The goal was to build a physical object that could channel spiritual energy, thereby promoting spiritual awareness and bringing about societal transformation.
Great.
Yeah, it all sounds
How?
good. Like, no problems here.
How though? What the fuck are you talking
Don't
about?
worry about that. It'll
Sir.
get figured out. It's fine. One of John's followers had built a large home with a tower at High Rock Hill in Lynn, Massachusetts. After several of the followers had a vision of a spirit coming down to the tower, it was decided this would be where the new motor would be constructed. For the next 9 months, Spear went into daily trances, drawing designs that detailed every aspect of the device. Finally, in 1854, the construction of, quote, the greatest spiritual revelation of the age began at High Rock Cottage.
Okay.
So the machine consisted of a black walnut table with insulated legs, topped by a series of copper, zinc, iron, and magnetic plates. From there, 2 magnetized struts rose from either side, suspending magnetized balls on copper chains between them. As it took shape, it began to be modeled after the human body. Later descriptions included details such as hair-like antenna to conduct etheric power and metal plate lungs that would rest as a symbolic form of respiration.
What are you talking about?
We're making a metal man! Do you remember that movie? Not Bionic Man. It was with,
Terminator?
No. No, it was with fucking,
What does he look like?
having an aneurysm. He died. He committed suicide. It was really
Heath
sad.
Ledger.
No. Mrs. Doubtfire. Fuck.
Robin Williams.
Thank you.
Adam Sandler.
Robin Williams.
Robin Williams, yeah.
No, so it had Robin Williams. I think it was called Bicentennial Man.
That name sounds familiar, but I have not seen it.
He looked like the Tin Man. I
Okay.
don't think it was a good movie, but for whatever reason, it's implanted in my brain, and I can remember exactly what the movie poster looks like.
Yeah? What does it
Yeah.
look like?
Honestly, the Tin Man from Wizard
Great.
of Oz. It's just like a black background, and he's like peering out, and he's just got this like solemn little like.
Is it Robin Williams?
Yes.
As the Bicentennial Man?
Yes. All right, now I gotta look it up.
Bicentennial Man. Oh, he does look solemn. He kind of looks like, you wouldn't get this reference, I don't think. Jet Jaguar from Toho.
No.
That's the Bicentennial
Yeah,
Man.
he does look like that.
Well, that's the Bicentennial Man.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. This is, Jet Jaguar from Toho. He fights Godzilla at some point.
Yeah, it looks a little similar. Yeah. What a strange movie. All right. In all, Spear and his followers are believed to have spent $2,000 on its construction, more than $50,000 today.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. A lot of fucking money.
God machine.
So remember his friend Andrew Davis?
Sure.
He wrote, quote, minerals were classified, the female distinguished from the male, so that the female metals could be located on one side of the mechanism and the male on the other.
What is a female metal?
Exactly. Then certain wires were carefully arranged and critically located.
For what?
The wires connected the male and female elements. They represented, quote, sexual interminglings so that the two become one, and by this process, a third is produced. So
What does that mean?
we're making metal babies now because that's how biology works.
What the fuck?
Ritual modeling was also involved. John's followers would act and behave as machines to understand how a machine would work, and they would perform acts for the machine to demonstrate how to be a living thing.
You ever see that movie Grandma's Boy?
No.
It's a really funny movie. It's one of those like crude comedies from the early 2000s.
Sure.
Where like he's working for a video game company, and one of the guys that like is the president of the video game company, he acts like a robot when he gets nervous. That's what I'm imagining.
It was exactly like that.
You should watch that movie. It's really funny.
Okay. So, yeah, so they would act and behave as machines to understand how the machine would work, and they would perform acts for the machine to demonstrate how to be a living thing. So they're also trying to teach the machine how to be a real person.
Are they boinking in front of the machine?
Maybe. They would even wrap metals in oiled pouches and consume them to become more machine-like.
No.
Bad.
That's all your lead poisoning.
Yeah. Well, they're already lead poisoned at this point. It's the 1800s. Everyone's made of lead.
They got their lead lattes with their asbestos.
So John and his followers saw this machine in a way as an infant. And they felt like what was missing was a mother of sorts to nourish and protect it the way it would a newborn. And they also felt it needed a father. So apparently...
Obviously, is John not the father?
He is, of course. The spirits selected John to be the father.
Of course.
John said he agreed, quote, only from a rational confidence in the wisdom and good faith of the invisible directors.
Okay, yeah, shut the fuck up, John.
So Mary Newton, a follower of John's and a wife of one of his richest supporters, became known as the Mary of New Dispensation.
And this is not his wife.
No, this is not his wife.
How does his wife feel about this?
She is hardly mentioned at all.
She has like no idea. She's just like, okay, whatever you say.
She's probably like, what the fuck are you doing, and wants no part of this, but she's a woman overshadowed by a weird man, so of course there's nothing about her in here.
Do you think that she is like happy that he's gone?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe she has the house to herself finally.
Like, oh my god, finally somebody else's problem.
Oh god, now he can go work on that stupid machine and I can live my life the way I want to.
That's my mom whenever my dad will work on his car.
Oh god. Alright, so she's declared the new motive power's mother. After a series of visions, upon accepting her role, Newton began living at the High Rock Cottage laboratory full-time in order to maintain a umbilical link with the device.
Oh my god.
There, Spear and the other spiritualists made daily efforts to charge the machine and infuse it with life, with some evidence suggesting these exercises were decidedly sexual.
Of course they were.
So we're doing some weird stuff with our metal robot baby.
They're boinking in front of the metal robot baby.
Exactly. They gotta teach him how to boink.
You gotta knock uglies.
Eventually, Mary Newton went into labor. After 2 hours of writhing in pain, she reached out and touched the new motor. Its inner rotor is said to have started moving for a moment, but then the promised self-perpetuating motion did not manifest.
No way! You have wires connecting metal to metal.
Even so, the practical spiritualist took the temporary movement as a sign of success.
Okay.
So allegedly, it moved a little bit when she touched it.
She just like jostled it.
She probably did. And they were like, we did it.
Oh my god,
we
guys.
made a metal baby.
It's alive and now dead. Funeral, let's move on.
The spirits through John sent a message. Quote, unto your earth a child is born. Its name shall be called the electrical motor. It is the offspring of mind, of the union of mind with matter impregnated with invisible elements. It is to move the mortal, scientific, philosophic, and religious worlds. It is now thoroughly, electrically, magnetically, chemically, spiritually, and celestially impregnated. It needs material care, like other newborn babies.
It's not doing anything!
It needs to be nurtured!
It's not doing anything!
It's gotta be nurtured!
Your electric motor isn't fucking doing anything.
So apparently there was even an article published about the machine, and the title of the article, all caps, "The Thing Moves." It reminds me of like a 1940s 40s black and white movie, 19 whatever, you know what I mean? Like The Thing or The
Yeah,
Blob
like
or like
Frankenstein type shit. I was just imagining that's the headline that Casey sees in his head whenever I get out of bed during an oppressive episode.
it moves.
Yeah.
All right, so this article goes out. Obviously, John and his followers are getting tons of public ridicule.
Of course.
Like,
because you're
obviously.
Yeah.
So he decides to try and kind of escape all this ridicule.
Mm-hmm.
And they have the machine moved to Randolph, New York, hoping to utilize the area's superior magnetic energies for their experiment. So they took it apart for transport and reassembled it in the new place.
Great.
And they doubled their efforts to try and get the motor to move more. But then Spear's work came to a disastrous conclusion. One night, a group of local young men broke into the Practical Spiritualist compound, tore out the machine's copper, quote, heart, and then threw the new motor into the local mill pond in pieces.
That's awful.
It is awful.
But like also
listen, he wasn't like hurting anyone.
No,
like
he was just taking people's money.
Yeah, I mean, with its destruction, the spirits had decided the world was not yet ready for the new motor.
He was sad.
Yeah, there was more work to be done, and the quest for a new motive power would evolve. So he had to take a little step back here. Yeah, he was definitely sad. He lost his metal baby.
I mean, I would probably give up too on having a baby made of metal if my baby of metal was
thrown into the water and smashed.
Talking about throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Until his retirement from mediumship in 1872, John never stopped trying to bring about the divine social state of the earth that the new motive power had promised. The new order was to treat men and women of all races and religions as equals, allow for free love, and help children to be brought up unburdened by outdated ideologies.
I love that.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
However, you hear me say free love?
Yep.
You remember the whole like free, it wasn't called free love, but it was called like open marriage or whatever from the Oneida community that I talked about several episodes ago. Kind of wild because he starts taking some of those ideologies. He doesn't do anything disgusting like the Oneida guy did, but it's a little interesting. So a new idea took hold. The new motor would come back and move once the world had changed.
Okay.
The spirit spoke of a utopia of free thinkers and lovers who worked only through empirical evidence. It was up to John and his followers to bring about this new society for the electrical motor to be reborn into. So they feel like the world needs to get everything right, do it all correctly, and then we can get this new machine.
Get it all right.
Biggie.
Do it all correctly. Fuck everyone all the time, literally. And then you get the machine.
Then you can have your metal baby.
Yes, once everybody's penis has been inside a certain number of vaginas, we won't tell you what that number is.
But you know what it is.
Yeah.
You'll know when you know.
You know when you know.
The first thing that would have to be done away with was false marriage. That is marriage defined by laws and contracts. Instead, they would bring about true marriage, aka sexual union based on attraction.
So okay.
Yeah, so this part never got too crazy, but it just kind of was wild to me that it started turning a little bit sex culty. October 1854, they move into this new commune, which they're now calling Harmonia.
Oh my gosh, it's named after you.
Unfortunately. I don't think you watch Severance, but there is a character in there named Harmony, which never happens. There's never shows or anyone else named Harmony, and it throws me off all the time. All right, so this new movement is dedicated to new inventions, the encouragement of inventors, blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. But the commune, they're saying its doors were open to the homeless and downtrodden. So they always have a nice, like, values behind everything. Yeah. They're trying. All right, so John decides he's going to go on a trip across the U.S. to try and find investors, and he brought with him Caroline Hinckley, which was a follower of his who would accompany him and work to dictate the messages the spirits transmitted through John.
Okay.
So they're going to go on a little spiritual journey. She's going to come and help him. Unfortunately, when they arrived in Boston after several months, scandal broke out because Caroline was obviously pregnant, despite John still being married. They denied John was the father.
Where was his wife? Because he was originally from Massachusetts.
Right.
And they moved to New York.
Mm-hmm. I assume he took his wife with him. Like I said, she's not mentioned hardly anywhere at all.
We really don't even know.
Yeah, probably brought her with him to New York. And then I would assume she got left at home whenever he was going on this little trip with Caroline.
Also, I love that they called it a cross-country trip, but they went from New York to Boston.
It's a big trip back then. They had to go very far.
Yeah. You're not wrong.
So as the pregnancy progressed, Scandal exploded. John's followers began questioning his actions, leading to legal battles, public outcry. Not looking good for John. So despite his growing controversies, John continued to push forward, even founding a new spiritualist community during the Civil War. He wants so badly for his metal baby commune to work out. His big project was an affordable automatic sewing machine, which he hoped would revolutionize domestic life and empower women. Unfortunately, like many of his inventions, the sewing machine never fully lived up to the promises, and he only broke even.
Sewing machines were a really hard thing to invent, actually.
Yeah?
Yeah, it took a really long time.
I mean, the original sewing machine is ginormous and has all kinds of, like...
Just like a computer.
kinds of crazy things to get it going. Like, it's pretty wild.
It's just, it was a hard thing. They had a hard time figuring it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, how we have nowadays with sewing machines, we have the two threads, we have the top thread and the bobbin.
Mm-hmm.
They struggled a lot with trying to figure out that bottom thread. A lot of them didn't even have that. Some of them tried to feature a dual-ended needle
Oh, God.
to, like, pierce all the way through and then come back up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
They
seems interesting.
But a
Yeah.
lot of them, they weren't, like, necessarily large. But the ones that, like, when they finally were invented, I mean, you'd have, like, they would be built into a desk.
Yeah, exactly.
And it would have the foot pedal and stuff. Yeah.
Very
But, like,
manual.
I used to have a nice old vintage.
Oh, really?
sewing
With the foot
machine.
pedal and everything? That's
Yeah, it
pretty
was
cool.
my great-grandma's.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
All right, so as the public opinion soured, John was ostracized from the spiritualist movement, especially by rivals like Emma Harding, who found a more mainstream, quote, church of spiritualism. So after relocating to Europe and marrying Caroline, so I guess he decided to get rid of Betsy somehow and married Caroline, John's health declined. In 1872, he retired from his spiritual mission, leaving behind a legacy of eccentricity, innovation, and controversy. Following his death in 1887, much of his work and the more scandalous parts of his life were buried, overshadowed by his philanthropic efforts in prison reform and abolition. Yet, rumors persist about his new motor and the potential for it to one day resurface
Oh my gosh.
as a mechanical messiah. And that is the story of John Murray Spear and his God machine.
Mechanical Messiah sounds like a really badass Nine Inch Nails song. No, I love that story.
It's great.
It's one that's just so fucking wacky and wild. Do we have any schematics or drawings of this thing?
There is a picture.
Yeah?
We're not 100% sure if this is the machine because apparently someone in Colorado found it in their attic. And it...
How does that happen?
Exactly. And they think it looks pretty similar to what it would have looked like, but we don't know 100%.
That does not resemble a human, though.
I don't know that it, like, the way it looked necessarily resembled a human. It's just that it was supposed to have these bits and bobs that would be like the lungs, the heart, like
Okay.
whatever. I don't know. I could be wrong. There was this too.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What a thing.
This looks the way it was more described. Got all the metal balls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks almost like a musical instrument you'd see in a Dr. Seuss movie.
Yeah. Who's it's and what's it's and whatever. Yeah. Anyways.
Perfect. Thank you.
But yeah, super interesting story. Loved it.
I love weird stuff like that. I love when
Yes.
people put their whole fucking heart into something that's just so wacky and wild. Especially when at the end of the day, nobody really is hurt, you know? At
Exactly.
least from everything that we understand, nobody was
Maybe
hurt.
Betsy, his wife, was hurt a little bit.
I think she
her
was probably
feelings hurt.
sick of his shit.
You're not wrong. She probably was. I just hope that she was able to, like, get her fair share of money from the marriage and like figure her life out. She wasn't fucked over or something. But yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we are going to do a story that, like, I think I've mentioned this to you a couple of times. It's going to sound really familiar to you.
Okay.
It's not one that I have done on this podcast, but it's one that when we were prototyping, like
it was one of
2
our
years
very
ago.
first episodes.
Yeah,
All
that
right.
will never get released because we were sitting on the couch and we were drunk as fuck.
I don't know if we were that drunk. The mics did not sound good.
Well,
That's
yeah,
for sure.
I'm talking about we were in there in the living room.
Oh, you mean the ones that we actually, yes, we were quite drunk and we were
Yes.
recording it on my phone.
Yes, and
Oh
we were
my
like, are we
God.
funny enough to have a podcast?
And then we made people listen to it.
up for debate. Still don't know. So we're gonna get into the Haley time machine.
Okay.
Buckle in. You ready?
That was me buckling in. I don't feel like I need to shit myself. Personally, in order to get into your time machine.
All right. Imagine.
Let's go.
You are enlisted in the U.S. Coast Guard.
Okay.
You're patrolling the shores of of Amagansett, New York, shortly after midnight on June 13th of 1942.
Okay.
It's a foggy, dark night. It's hard to see anything around you, and you're doing the best that you can to make sure that you're keeping a vigilant watch.
Okay.
All of a sudden, 4 mysterious figures appear before you in the fog.
Okay.
They claim to be fishermen. They're not really dressed for that job. You start questioning them, asking what they're doing here, what's your job, what are y'all fishing for?
What are they fishing for?
Instead of answering you, one man goes, "Look, I wouldn't want to kill you. You don't want to know what this is about." The fisherman then pulls out a wad of bills from his pocket of his wet pants and hands it to you. And he goes, "Forget about this. I'll give you some money. You can go, you can have a good time." Around this time, you also start recognizing that some of these men are speaking German. And they're burying shit on the beach.
Oh no.
When you ask the strange man what they're burying out there, he goes, "Oh, just some clams."
Why?
Unsure of what to do because you're outmanned and you don't have any weapons on you, you accept the money. You turn and you slowly walk away from the men, leaving them in the fog of the night. This is exactly what happened to Coast Guard seaman John Cullen, not related to Edward Cullen,
Oh, damn.
as he was patrolling the shores. Once he was out of eyesight from these men, he sprinted the mile back to his Coast Guard command where he pushed open the doors and announced, "There are Germans on the beach." Cullen and a group of guardsmen soon returned, this time with their .30 caliber rifles. In the fog and darkness, they smelled diesel fuel, and they could just barely make out the image of a submarine offshore in the dense fog. This was when the Nazis invaded Long Island.
Oh my god, I forgot about this. Let's go.
All right, so that boat that they saw, it was U-Boat 202, which had just delivered 4 Nazi saboteurs to the Long Island shore. The sighting of the U-Boat, however, was actually quickly dismissed by the Coast Guard higher-ups when they reported it. And even by the U.S. Navy intelligence. So it escaped back out into the ocean darkness, but it did that the next day because it actually ran aground on a sandbar less than 100 fucking yards off the coast.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, so they had to sit there and wait for, like, high tide.
Awkward.
Oh, it's so awful. So the invaders had been launched from the U-boat in inflatable rafts to come ashore, which, by the way, one of the guys nearly drowned in. And they were wearing German Navy uniforms when they launched in those boats so that if they were captured, they would be classified as prisoners of war rather than spies. The Coast Guard found those boats, and they also found a duffel bag on the shore. That was the one that was buried. And 4 wooden crates. The crates were filled with brick-sized high explosives, primers, incendiaries, which were all to be used for a planned 2-year reign of terror against New York, Tennessee, Illinois, Pennsylvania, and other areas in the U.S. Their plan with these explosives was to destroy aluminum plants that were building warplanes and other U.S. industries producing wartime products.
They have big plans.
Yeah. According to MI5, they were also, quote, instructed to carry out small acts of terrorism, such as placing of incendiary bombs in suitcases left in luggage depots and in Jewish-owned shops.
Ugh.
However, they were told to avoid causing deaths or injuries as, quote, this would not benefit Germany. So
wild.
all of these invaders, all of the ones that are going to be involved in this story, were given 3 whole weeks of intensive sabotage training in the German High Command School on an estate at Quincy near Berlin, Germany. 3 weeks.
Wow, that's enough.
3 weeks, yeah.
Honestly,
oh, yeah.
Too much.
They were just out in the woods learning karate. No, but they're instructed in the manufacture and use of explosives, incendiaries, primers, and various forms of mechanical, chemical, and electrical delayed timing devices. Considerable time was also spent developing complete background histories for each person to use when they were in the U.S. And they were encouraged to converse in English and read American newspapers and magazines to improve their English and familiarity with current American events and culture. This was great for some of them, but not for all of them, because 4 of the saboteurs were no strangers to New York. They had actually been born in Germany, but had lived and worked in the U.S. Before the war started.
Okay.
So George Dash was the leader of this whole band of people in Long Island. He was 39 and he had perfect English. He was married to a U.S. citizen and he worked in the U.S. for 19 years.
Wow. Okay.
Before going back to Germany. Then you had Ernest Berger, who was 36.
Get
Yep.
out of here.
Oh, yeah. Mr. Berger himself.
Is there one that's like Dishonest Burger too?
That's what?
Dishonest Burger?
What do you mean?
Ernest? What's the opposite of earnest?
I understand. I'm sorry. I'm stupid.
It's fine. It was a bad joke.
It's okay.
It didn't deserve to be laughed at.
I laughed at it, though. It's fine.
Thanks. It
You're
was
welcome.
forced.
A little. That'd make you feel good sometimes.
Thanks. I need it.
So Mr. Berger was a naturalized U.S. citizen who came to America in 1927 and was even in the National Guard. But he went back to Germany in 1933. The other two saboteurs that were in this group, Henrik Heinck, who was 35.
That is quite a German name.
It really is, dude. And when you see pictures of these guys, they look so German, too. Then there's Richard Kieran, who was 34. They were former members of the German-American Bund, which was the American equivalent of the Nazi Party.
Great.
We love that here, right?
I mean, that's what America's all about recently.
Currently, yeah.
Yeah.
We got people doing fucking
They
Nazi
love
salutes.
to be Nazis all over the news for everyone to see.
Oh, it's so
Yeah.
stupid.
What a great time to be alive, isn't it?
What I love about this story, though, is that it shows how fucking stupid Nazis can really be, though.
Thank God.
Because even before the mission began, it was in danger of being compromised.
Good.
Mr. George Dash, the one that I told you was like 39, great English, he's like the leader of this group. He left confidential documents just like on a train
Perfect.
on his way to Paris.
Wow. Why did you have those out in the first place?
And then one of the agents, while drunk, announced to patrons in a tavern that he was in that he was a secret agent.
Wow. We're doing well. Honestly, MAGA vibes. It's very similar.
They're just so excited to be involved.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And all of these guys were picked too because they were familiar with America and English and everything. So
Yeah.
like getting them trained, the focus was more on like not how to be a spy, but
Just how to
more
blend in.
how to like set up bombs.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
got the rest.
Yeah.
You're fine. You're a normal guy. So the first cell of 4 Nazi saboteurs departed a German submarine base at Lorient, France on May 22nd in 1942. And that's the group that went to New York. And then another 4-man group left 2 days later for Florida.
Okay.
The saboteurs were given counterfeit birth certificates, social security cards, draft deferment cards, and $175,200 between them all in United States currency, which was hidden in the lining of their duffel bags.
Okay.
That was estimated to be enough for 2 years of operations, as well as handkerchiefs with the names of Nazi sympathizers written in invisible ink.
We're still using invisible ink.
It's World War II.
Like, it's one of those things that you think is such a gimmick, but they were really using it.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wild.
So, let's go back to their incidental arrival on the beach that morning. They get there, this whole interaction happens. The saboteurs walked in the dark along Montauk Highway to the Long Island Railroad Station in Amaget.
LIRR.
What?
The LIRR. Long Island Railroad Station.
Is this a thing?
That's what it's called. LIRR.
Oh, I don't know shit about dick when it comes to railroads, dog.
Yeah, it still runs to this day.
Oh, neat.
I took it back from like Penn Station to here.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, they took it too. They arrived there at about 5 a.m. after briefly getting lost.
Oh, okay.
But they did eventually find their way, and they all got on an express train to New York City with about $20,000 each of U.S. currency in their pockets.
Nice. That's a lot to have in your pocket.
It really is.
You're gonna get mugged.
They stopped at a different terminal to change trains, and they had a short little shopping trip where they got new clothes before arriving in the city, which is very important.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah,
You gotta have
honestly.
a new little identity with your outfits and
I
everything.
would love it. I'd have a great time.
Sounds great.
And they get to the city, and there's actually a huge parade going on in the city. It was called the War Parade. I didn't find too much about it, but I guess it's just like a big parade, and people were being real nationalists about, you know.
War.
Yeah.
We love war. Let's have a
And-
parade about it.
And apparently 2.5 million people felt that way because that's how many were on the streets watching this parade.
Great.
Amongst them were 2 of the German spies who had also stopped to watch the parade. And these fucking idiots were so enamored with this parade and like being back in New York that they just began reminiscing
about being US citizens. And they were like, oh, I just really love New York City and I love being American. So they began reconsidering their roles as saboteurs.
Oh my fucking God.
This parade is done, they get to their hotel, and they actually start to settle in, and they kind of like start bitching about like Germany kind of fucking sucks. Yeah, Germany does suck. What if we were American? Yeah, dude, we should be American. And finally, Mr. Dash calls John Berger. John Berger. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore.
John Burger.
Burgundy's nuts. Sorry. But Mr. Dash calls Berger into his upper story hotel room, and he opened a window when Mr. Berger walked in, saying that they should talk. And he says to Mr. Berger, only one of us will walk out that door. The other will fly out this window if you disagree with me.
The fuck?
Because he's basically, they are trying to conspire to like sabotage the sabotage.
Sabotage!
Yeah, the Beastie Boys. So Dash told Berger that he had no intention of going through with this mission, that he hated being a Nazi, and he planned to report the plot to the FBI.
Damn.
Berger agreed and was like, let's defect to the US like immediately. Fuck yeah.
Holy wow. Okay.
So they call the FBI and they tell the FBI, ja, we are German. Ja, we come to sabotage the United States. And the FBI goes, that's really funny, and hangs up.
Because no one would ever believe that.
For
that
real.
phone call. That's a fake fucking phone call.
Completely agree.
Oh, God.
And around the time that they're making this initial call, the group in Florida touches ground, coming ashore at Ponte Verde, Florida, wearing nothing more than swimming trunks and marine hats emblazoned with Nazi swastika.
Oh, my fucking God. In Florida.
They don't wear the hats.
Oh, my God. These guys.
It's summer in Florida. You can just wear the swim trunks. You don't need the hats. Drop the hats. God. So they land and they make their way north to Jacksonville, and the cell continued on to Cincinnati by train before splitting up to go to Chicago and New York. Here, additional breaches of security occurred.
God.
One man boasted to a colleague about their mission, and in Chicago, another had asked his father to buy him a sports car, claiming he needed it while traveling on business for the German government. Because these guys a lot of them were U.S. citizens.
Yeah.
Or lived in the U.S., so they have family here, and they're just talking about whatever the fuck they want.
Oh my God.
But let's go back to Dash, who was literally so insistent on speaking not just to the FBI, but Mr. J. Edgar Hoover himself, that he got onto a train and went to Washington, D.C. And once he got there, he literally walked onto the FBI headquarters, where he gained the attention of Assistant Director D.M. Ladd by showing him the operations budget of $84,000 cash. He turns himself in and gives a 500-page confession.
Shit.
Yeah. Based on the information given by Dash and his colleague Ernest Berger, the two Nazis in New York were taken in custody on June 23rd, which is less than, what day did we land here? Less than 10 days. Less than 10 days later.
God.
Yeah.
They're not really good spies.
They really are not. They really are not. And then two more saboteurs were arrested in Chicago on June 27th. The Nazis had failed to carry out any attacks and did little more than spend $612 for clothes, meals, hotels, and travel.
They just got a trip. That's all. They just had a nice little vacation paid for.
Oh, yeah. The Nazis got a very poor return on their investment.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
And even though Dash had literally turned himself in, the FBI took credit in its entirety for this whole thing.
Of course they did.
J. Edgar Hoover went on and announced that they had captured the Nazi saboteurs and how the FBI was just so good and their rigorous training and attention to detail.
Oh, the FBI deleted their first call.
Literally.
God.
Oh, yeah. The FBI said nothing at all about these guys literally turning themselves in.
Of course.
But since they were caught before they could do anything, officials didn't really know how to proceed with charges against the saboteurs. Attorney General Francis Biddle estimated that at best, the German saboteurs could be convicted of conspiracy and face up to 3 years in prison, while Berger and Haupt could be tried for treason. His alternative proposal was imprisoning them as prisoners of war for the remainder of the war. However, President Roosevelt determined these proposals were unacceptable. He said that the American citizens, the ones that were Americans that went back to Germany, they were all guilty of treason and thus liable to court-martial.
Damn.
As for those that were German citizens, he said they'd forfeited their right to civilian trial since they were, quote, waging battle within our country.
Damn.
Roosevelt then said he wanted all the saboteurs to be immediately executed.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Not fucking around.
No, he's not.
Which, I mean,
We had
the
just...
Nazis, we shouldn't be fucking around.
I believe at this point we were like us as America maybe a month into the World War.
Okay.
I think we had just joined.
We're a month in though, like they at this point they may not even realize, like, do they know what the Nazis are fucking up to? Like,
I'm not sure.
you know what I mean? Like, people knew there was a war, but like they may not have even known.
I'm like second guessing how long we had been in World War II at that point because Pearl Harbor happened in December. We've been in it for like about 6 months, I would say.
Okay, so you weren't that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1941, and we're in 42. Yeah, 1941 in December. So anyway,
Anyways.
yeah, so we're like still relatively early enough that we still got like our claws out, and we're just, and we got fucked up in Pearl Harbor. Like, we're pissed about everything. So of course we're gonna take it super, super hard on these guys. To accomplish this, he told Biddle that he would use his presidential powers to convene a military tribunal to prosecute the saboteurs, something not done on American soil since the end of the American Civil War.
Whoa.
Yeah. That same month that he proclaimed this, Life magazine editorial called for the death penalty for these saboteurs as well. So, like, generally the public is very much against them. And I think for a very justifiable reason. You're going to come into a country and try to fuck their shit up. They're going to hate you.
Terrorists, like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On July 2nd of 1942, President Roosevelt issued Executive Proclamation 2561, creating a military tribunal to prosecute the Germans. Placed before a 7-member military commission, the Germans were charged with the following offenses: violating the law of war, violating Article 81 of the Articles of War, defining the offense of corresponding with or giving intelligence to the enemy, violating Article 82 of the Articles of War, defining the offense of spying, and conspiracy to commit the offenses alleged in the first 3 charges. Which is just, it cracks me up that they were like, and if you don't get charged with those, you get charged with the idea of it.
Yeah. You're fucked no matter what.
The trial for the 8 defendants ended on August 1st of 1942, only 22 days after it started.
Yeah, that's not gonna take long.
And
It's an easy win.
Oh, for sure. And 2 days later, all were found guilty and sentenced to death. Roosevelt commuted Berger's sentence to life in prison and Dash's to 30 years because they had surrendered themselves and provided information about the others. But the others were executed on August 8th of 1942 in the electric chair on the 3rd floor of the District of Columbia jail, and they were buried in a potter's field in the Blue Plains neighborhood in the Anacostia area of Washington. This next little bit, the whole thing just kind of cracks me up a little bit. You'll understand why, I think. During the remaining years of the war, the Germans only once more dispatched agents to the United States by submarine. In November 1944, as part of Operation Elster, the German submarine U-1230 left to SS Reichenhurst. Stop pumped. Give me a second. I have it pulled up on Wikipedia. This word, I had to leave it in there because it just fucking cracked me up. It's so long.
Reichssicherheitshauptamt.
Reichssicherheitshauptamt.
It just sounded like vowels.
There's barely any vowels. But I guess it means the Reich Security Main Office. They left 2 spies on the coast of Maine to gather intelligence concerning American manufacturing and technological progress.
But ultimately, they were saying, like, we learned from our mistake and we're not sending any fuckers back over there. Like,
Well,
No.
after a month of high living in New York City, but no espionage gathering, one of the men turned himself into the FBI,
oh shit.
which captured both agents soon afterwards. Both of these 2 stupid idiots were convicted and sentenced to death, with their execution stayed throughout the duration of the war, after which their punishment was commuted by President Truman into life sentences in prison.
God damn. These people are so stupid.
I know, they did not learn to listen. After that, though, Germany did not send any more people into America to try to gather information. So,
Sending them to their death.
a lesson has been learned.
Like, you can't just send somebody with a few weeks training and expect them to be a spy.
For real.
What do you mean?
For real.
Spies are usually people that have been in the military for decades. Like,
that are trained and understand psychology and espionage tactics and shit.
And they're not gonna go touting verbally like
I'm a spy.
Like, God damn.
Yeah, like, what do you think you are, Archer? Shut up. God. In 1948, President Harry Truman granted Dasch and Berger executive clemency on the condition of deportation.
Okay.
So they were sent back to Germany. At this time, it was West Germany, where they lived the rest of their lives, disgraced and regarded as traitors who caused the deaths of their comrades,
God.
hated by Germans and Americans.
Imagine being hated by both.
Back in the U.S., 16 people total were arrested for aiding these saboteurs. The last person to be arrested was a Lutheran pastor, Karl Kripper, a member of the German-American Bund, that Nazi party that we referenced earlier. And he had helped establish safe houses for the saboteurs. He was found guilty of trading with the enemy and conspiracy to commit sabotage, and he was sentenced to 12 years in prison. For his part in the affair, John Cullen, the man who found them on the beach, was awarded the Coxswain insignia, featured on the front page of the New York Times, and received the Legion of Merit Medal.
Good for him.
His wedding in 1944 made the newspapers and attracted turnout, quote, well beyond the intended guests.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's really sweet for him.
I know.
Oh my God.
And then I have a last little tidbit that, like, once again, is just Nazis being Nazis. Sometime during the 1960s or 70s, the National Socialist White People's Party placed an unauthorized monument to the executed spies in a thicket in southwest Washington, D.C. on National Park Service land.
You guys.
It went largely unknown and ignored for several decades before it was removed in 2010.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
No one was like, hey, what's that?
Nobody knew it was there. They hid it in the woods. Nazis suck. Punch your fucking local Nazi in the face.
There's a lot of them now.
I hope you don't have any local Nazis, but
If
yeah.
you like reach your fist out and punch, you'll probably hit one.
That was a weird sound from my water glass.
Calm down. That was
Yeah.
really good though, because
Thank
that's a
you.
bit of history that I definitely did not know.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a fun little story.
It is a fun little story.
It is sad that it ends in the deaths of a few people, but like maybe consider your choices before going into an enemy land, you know?
Yeah, I think they probably didn't think about the fact that this mission was most likely going to end in death. Like,
I think a lot of them seem not like super young, but like young enough, and they're given a lot of money. They're probably like, well, I can just use
Hell
this
yeah.
money, go back to the US and
a
like,
little time.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, one of the guys called up his fucking dad. And he asked his dad to buy him the sports car. He was like, I have the money for it. I just can't put my name on it. Yeah.
Why? Oh, sorry. I'm a Nazi. I forgot.
Yeah. For real. Well, you know, just German government business.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Crazy shit. Yeah, definitely punch your local Nazi for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's time to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish that I could find, just relevant to Nazis, I found years ago a long form article that talked about the rise of skinheads and Nazis in punk spaces and how punks in local punk communities began fighting back. It was awesome. It was such a cool fucking article. And it talked about like, you can't be tolerant to any of that bullshit, because even if there's a kid who's sitting down, who's not causing any trouble, but you recognize that he's got like dog whistle patches or stickers or anything on him or his shoes or anything along those lines, and you let him sit there, he's going to bring his friends.
Yep.
And they're going to bring their friends. And then suddenly you've got a fucking Nazi bar.
Yep.
Keep that shit out of here.
And here we are,
Mhm.
2025. Good times.
History doth repeat itself.
It sure fucking does.
It sure fucking doth.
It's dark times out there, man. We're very aware of that. Like, I don't know. There's a part of me that's like, is it okay to keep doing silly stuff that and
You have to.
stuff and like makes people laugh in these
Yeah.
horrible dark times? Yeah, you definitely have to. Like, we're here to keep things weird, teach you about cool stuff, weird stuff, gross stuff, things you want to tell your friends, and
Yeah.
have a good time with it, and just give you a slight reprieve from the horrid thing that is the news these days.
Absolutely. And it really is important to continue to bring joy into not just your life, but the lives of people around you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if you lose that joy, you're letting them win.
Exactly. Yes. More like I've usually been one when this stuff goes on that I'd rather not know about it, which sounds awful, but it's like informing myself just makes my mental state horrible. And, I kind of just like read the headline and go about my day trying not to think about it. But lately I'm like, I feel like I actually do need to educate myself. Like, it
Absolutely.
feels very important. So educate yourself in the topics. Make sure you're aware of what's going on. It's, a lot of big things are happening.
If you really want to educate yourself, there is a wonderful declassified handbook from the CIA on how to sabotage fascism. Do you mind if I read a little excerpt really quick?
Do it, please.
All right. So this section is general devices for lowering morale and creating confusion. A, give lengthy and incomprehensible explanations when questioned. B, report imaginary spies or dangers to the Gestapo or police. C, act stupid. Got that one down. D, be as irritating and quarrelsome as possible without getting yourself into trouble.
Oh, I do that every day.
Yes. No, this is it's awesome.
What's the title of the book again?
Oh, give me 1 second. Why is my phone acting up with me? Ugh. It's Simple Sabotage Field Manual, Strategic Services Provisional. It's from World War II, so
Incredible.
it's so good. But it was declassified. It was declassified in 2008, and it's one of those things that, like, when you read it, it's like all of this is so stupidly easy. It makes sense, but like it makes sense.
You would think, but these fucking German Nazis that tried to come ashore didn't read any of that shit. Like,
Yes.
stupid assholes.
Can I finish that with a couple more?
Yes.
All right. Insist on doing everything through channels. Never permit shortcuts or be taken in order to expedite decisions. Make speeches. Talk as frequently as possible and at great length. Illustrate your points by long anecdotes and accounts of personal experience. Bring up irrelevant issues as frequently as possible. Haggle over precise wording of communications, minutes, and resolutions. Misunderstand orders. Ask endless questions or engage in long correspondence about such orders. Quibble over them when you can.
That's no problem.
Hold conferences when there is more critical work to be done.
We should have meetings about meetings.
This should have been an email.
Yeah.
It is funny too when you read all of it. I read it. I'm like, this is my job. This is literally what my job has like fallen to. Is
Oh my
That kind of bullshit.
god. That's a great book though. I love that.
yeah, definitely recommend.
Great story.
Beautiful story. Thank you.
Yeah, loved it. Thank you.
You're welcome. I said that it's sad, but you know what? Fuck it. We love dead Nazis. I'm sorry. I'm taking back all the sad things that I said about them. They made the choice. They knew the risks.
Yeah.
Fuck dead Nazis.
I don't really have much sympathy for Nazis.
Nor do I.
Nor doth I.
Yeah. Keep strong.
Oh,
Keep
yeah.
smart. Always educate yourself.
Try to keep laughing.
Yeah.
If you can't laugh on your own, drugs can help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't produce homemade serotonin. Store-bought is fine.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh man. Thank you guys for listening though.
yeah, for real. Thanks for hanging out, sticking
Find us on
around.
social media. Like, subscribe. You know the deal. We're on all the social medias these days.
Oh, yeah.
We haven't given up on Meta yet. Unfortunately, we got a lot of people over there that follow us. So,
We should probably look into Blue Sky, though.
yeah, I think we're thinking about Blue Sky so we can get off Meta. We would prefer not to be there if we don't have to be.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And absolutely. And we had a brief scare with TikTok. It's still there. It's a
For
little bit
now.
gross now. It's a little bit icky.
Yeah, I don't like that. I deleted TikTok entirely off my phone.
But yeah, I didn't because I am our social media manager. But
You're the everything manager. I'm so sorry. I'm so hands off.
oh man, I have control issues.
It's good.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you.
for listening.
To make it weird. Goodbye. If you liked our episode, please leave us a review on Spotify or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.
And don't forget to follow us on social media. We're on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and Threads at Make It Weird Pod.
Got something weird you want to share with the world? Send it over to us at makeitweirdpod@gmail.com.
Thanks for listening to Make It Weird.
Bye.